Alright, so the very first thing that I learned when I learned Multisim 3, Multisim 4 was how to put the power on the display. So we're just going to do the power first, and then we'll work our way through the resistors and the transistors and the whole 9 yards. But to get power on a design, because basically you start off with like what we call a breadboard, and you just basically place your power where you need it, and you run your wires to the device. And for instance, we'll just go ahead and run it to a resistor, and I'll tease you with being able to see what the watt level looks like when you're using it. So, and here we go. To place power, come over. You can always hit place source. You got multiple places to get it. Place components will do the same thing. Place source. Normally we just hit place source, and you have your power sources, all different kinds. The ones we use the most, the ones I use the most, are DC power and ground. And as I was taught, it'll drop a 12 volt on there. Same thing with ground. I recommend every schematic have a ground somewhere in the diagram. And you notice that you come up and you have to hit OK, grab another item, hit OK, and then close. So here you have your basic battery and your ground. Nothing fancy to it. And you can run them any way, shape, form. You can move the ground around if you need to. Left click, drag. You know, if you're OCD like I am, that's how you do your power. And then you're like, well, how you got power? Where's the resistor? Your basic family food group will serve you all choices between capacitors and resistors and potentiometers and thermistors, and which I've dealt with everything in this entire list. So for us, for this tutorial purpose, we run into the what we call the most used resistor on planet Earth, a 1.2K ohm resistor, or I should say, yeah, 1.2K ohm resistor. Or I'd have to say pretty much every device on planet Earth. You'll have this resistor, if not, other ones, 10Ks, if not 1.2Ks. We call commonality. And simply to wire it up, because we're just going to pass the battery through it, nothing fancy, and then back to ground. You can click and then come back to ground. And you got your basic circuit. Voltage, DC, ground, and a component. Doesn't matter what the component is, you got your basic component. And how much wattage does it use? How much watts are going to pass through that resistor? So if I put this 1.2K ohm resistor across the whole battery, what's it going to do? So you put your watt meter right above it. You see how I just go up there, you can click on your little watt spyglasses, we call it, and you hit play, and boom, you're out the gate. We've got 120 milliwatts going through that resistor. It's really nothing. That's why you use 1.2Ks to drive most of your 12-volt circuitry. 9-volt circuitry will use 1Ks or higher to run the LEDs. To safely run LEDs, 1.2Ks are normally used. So there you go, your basic circuit with a watt meter spyglass thing used on it. Nothing really fancy to it. Simple. I normally close out the bottom windows when I'm using this. And moving around it can be somewhat cumbersome, troubling, but needless to say, once you've used Multisim for a good while, you'll get used to the center mouse click to basically move the diagram around, zoom in, zoom out, and all that stuff. Very powerful software when it comes to testing a design or testing a circuit as best as you possibly can, or getting an understanding of how it operates. But to me, just putting the battery there, putting the ground there, and showing that, granted, you don't need the ground. It's not required. It's not 99.9% required all the time. But to me, for when you're reading a schematic, it helps to know where the ground is. Even if you had a ground just sitting out here floating, nothing fancy. Come over here, hit a ground. Just a regular ground, nothing fancy. And you just had it sitting right here in the schematic. I would never fault you for that, because that's just another ground point on the chassis. My teacher probably would have gotten like OCD, and no, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. But needless to say, there's your basic power illustration in Multisim 14. Like, man, I can't believe it's been this long. But I noticed that a lot of people need to know how to do this kind of stuff. So this will kind of get you through the gates and just placing just your basic items. The next item we'll go ahead and place up will be the multimeter. But right now, that's just a perfect illustration of how to put power, DC power, onto a schematic map or your breadboard, and you're good to go at that point in time. In other words, this circuit branches out, and you can do multiple things with it. Anyway, hopefully enjoyed the how to get the power on the Multisim map. Have a good day.